But very briefly, I want these panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start with Brian from Western Digital. Go for it, Brian.
Hi, so I'm Brian Miller from Western Digital. So I run strategic partnerships for our consumer business unit. I'll give you the quick Western Digital overview. So we're an interesting player in the whole digital world and digital living room. So many people know us as the largest storage company in the world. So we make around 200 million drives a year. And about 40% of the consumer content in the world is actually sitting on a Western Digital drive, either in an Apple or a Dell or a Lenovo PC, or on an external storage drive, or even on your DVR. In addition, we have this big OEM business, but in the consumer business, we've got about a $2 billion consumer business. And with that, we kind of help people manage their digital world in three ways. One is we help people store and protect their content. So hopefully all of you back up your PCs and make sure your pictures are protected. Yes? Not enough people nodding.
They're nodding inside.
Not enough, not enough. Secondly is we help people access and share their content. So we have a storage drive you set up on your home network. You can go in, throw your stuff on there, go anywhere in the world, and with a tablet, an Android phone, you can access any of your content from anywhere, anytime, any device, your photos, your movies, your pictures, your documents, whatever it would be. And the third leg, which is why we're here today, is we also help people experience and enjoy their content. So we have a WDTV, which is a streaming media player product, which enables you to get all of your personal content, your photos, your movies, your pictures, all that stuff onto the television, as well as what we call the best of the internet. So the Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, Spotify, Flickr, Pandora, et cetera, et cetera.
So Brian, you're going to get offended when I call this, but it's an equivalent or competitor to the iTunes, the Apple TV, and the Roku box we just gave away.
Correct. Competitor against both, and the key differentiation is that we do the personal content as well as the internet-based content, and we're also a worldwide company. So you've got those three players in the U.S. If you go outside the U.S., Apple TV and WDTV kind of control the market outside the U.S.
Have you guys, who here has seen the gadget itself? So you got to do some more marketing.
Definitely. Dan's done a pretty good job. Dan said of all the boxes out there, WDTV and the Roku are the two boxes to have as standalone $99 digital media player to get all that stuff.
And you've been out there for 3 years. You've sold how many?
We've had products out in the market for 3 years. Yeah. What was the question?
You've sold how many?
Oh, so publicly what we've said is we did at CES, we said we'd sold over 3.5 million devices worldwide.
It's a real product.
It is a real product.
Thank you. We'll get back in a second. Adrian from Google.
Hi, I'm Adrian McAllister. I work on the Google TV team. I'm responsible for all of our distribution, hardware, retail partnerships, as well as our content partnerships in North and South America, content outside of the U.S. Google TV has a bit of a different take on the connected TV space. Google TV is really about bringing the power of Google services as well as other third-party services to the connected TV. We're based off of the Android platform, and we're differentiated in this space in a couple of different ways. One, in that we really want to enhance the live viewing experience, but then we also bring these great Google services like search, optimized for TV. We have a TV and movies browse and discovery experience that's personalized to the individual. We also have a customized or custom YouTube experience that we think is the best YouTube experience out in the connected TV space. And we have opened up the Google Play store and the thousands and thousands of developers that help power the Google Play store to the connected TV experience.
Adrian, you're not going to give us a sales figure, right?
I will not give you a sales figure.
Gotcha.
And because our model is that we work with OEM partners, multiple, we have announced partnerships today with Sony, Vizio, Samsung, and LG. And so it's their numbers to share. It's not ours.
Jeremy?
Hi, I'm Jeremy Tobin. I'm CEO of a company called Digit. For background, I've actually been in the connected TV space since the 90s. I was a co-founder of a company called Mediabolic. We built the first ever digital media receiver with HP back in the early 2000s. Other products with Pioneer, Fujitsu, Denon, and a bunch of other companies. That company got bought by Macrovision in 2006. I was also the first employee on board at Sling Media, responsible for building the Sling Box, which was acquired by EchoStar in 2007. Since then, I've worked with companies like Boxy, Clicker, Voodoo, Netgear, D-Link, and a bunch of others in the connected home. and last year joined Digit. I'm having an echo. Can anyone else hear that, or is that just me?
No, I can hear it.
What's that? A little bit of feedback. Yeah, a little feedback. Hot mic. Isn't that what they said? Anyhow, what Digit's about...
Would someone help? That'd be great.
What Digit's... I'll try leaning back. What Digit's about... No. Up? Further away. Further away. Is that better? Yes. All right. I'm good at other forms of technology, I promise. We're creating a brand new app that's focused entirely around content discovery. We believe that there's no great content discovery experience on mobile devices today. We're focusing on the iPad, and we'll be launching something new in a few weeks. All about you as an individual and finding the content you want and then connecting that to the devices that you own. And that's coming very soon.
This is great. We've got two software makers coming at it from slightly different perspectives. We've got a box maker where we're supposed to have someone from Samsung here, couldn't make it. But we'll get a good variety of perspectives on digital TV, digital home, war for the living room is the way I would write it if I could. Because I'm a journalist and it's my first instinct, I want to ask Adrian questions about Google TV because that's the most likely chance we have of making news here. You weren't around for the beginning of the first launch. You came in last year, but you've been there to sort of watch Google iterate. Google's famous for sort of launching stuff, doesn't work at first, and they keep coming back at it. They're pretty frank about the fact that they're okay with that. It'd be great if you could leave that door open because it's really hot in here. So I'm happy to yell. If you could leave that door open, it'd be great. Thank you. Because I'm already schwitzing. We'll just talk loud. How about that? Or you can move up. We're just sweating. Can you tell us what Google thinks it's learned about what happened during the first iteration, how they're trying to tackle it now, and do they think it's a problem with product they had initially, or it's a problem with biz dev stuff and reactions they got from the networks about them not wanting to participate in your product?
We definitely learned a lot from the launch of version 1, which was back in 2010. We did release a new software update this past fall, what we call Creatively version 2. And what we learned was that, one, we needed a much simpler UI. The first version looked like a PC or...
Is this consumer feedback saying we don't like the UI, or are you guys figuring it out on your own, or you're listening to Walt
it's a little
Mossberg,
bit of both. I mean, we spent a lot of time listening to our users. And so we definitely simplified the user experience. So now when you launch the home button on your Google TV, you have a nice, clean menu coming up in the bottom of the screen, much more intuitive and easy to navigate. We also, in the first version, had put search front and center, which makes sense because we're Google, but at the same time, when people turn on their TVs, they don't always want to have to be proactive in searching for something, although I do think that is one of the killer experiences on Google TV. We realized we needed a better browse and discovery experience, so we built a new, what we call TV and Movies app, which is a personalized guide. So when one person turns on their Google TV versus when I turn on my Google TV, we're going to see something different because we've watched different things, we've rated things differently, and we have different interests. So that was the second key differentiator. And then we also wanted to make sure that we were opening up and really building on the success of Android. And so with the version 2, we opened up the Google Play Store and all those developers for the platform.
So you guys feel like this is a product that people want, but we weren't giving them the right version of the product, instead of this is a product people want, but we can't deliver it to them because we're not getting cooperation from the content folks? Or an alternate option would be, this isn't a product people want yet. There's no demand for it in the marketplace yet.
I think we're still in a very early stage in the connected TV space. Early days, as we call it, and a lot of people say. But it really is true. I think as an industry, we all have a lot to do to educate consumers about the value of connected TVs. I mean, my mother can barely operate a DVR in the one sense, and my sister, who's nearly 10 years younger, will watch a ton of TV content on her PC or iPad, and both of those constituencies I don't think realize the value. And so I think as an industry, there's a lot of education in the value that we need to express about the connected TV space.
So, Jeremy, you guys want to do an electronic programming guide. People have been chasing after that grail for a long time. The cable guys want to control that. The device guys want to control that. It's kind of the entire point of what Adrian's doing is to control that. How are you going to squeeze in there?
That's a very, very well put question, Peter.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I think I actually really like the odds are just stacked up. I don't think any single cable or other MSO can ever own the space. I think fundamentally they operate in silos and they're forced to operate in silos. We believe the fundamental future of the guide, it has social woven into it, and I don't mean social from a check and sticker perspective. I mean social from a discover based on social interests. We've already seen, the water cooler is dispersing and fragmenting itself to become part social, part real-time, part asynchronous, etc. So if you're Time Warner or you're Comcast, you simply cannot build a guide that interacts with people who are not on Comcast or Time Warner. Never going to happen. They operate in those worlds, and that will remain that way forever after. So we believe they will always make a guide that they believe is good enough for their customers, and I think that they will continue to do that. Xfinity app from Comcast ain't bad. Lets me control my DVR. Not too shabby. It's not exact. Doesn't let me save a search. Pretty easy, pretty obvious kind of feature, I would think, considering I search it a lot. You'd think they'd let me search. Google's got that one right? They know how to do search, but those two worlds don't seem to want to collide. On the other hand, so that's how we look at the cable guys. The other end of the spectrum is device makers, Google, etc. I think they operate from similar constraints. They can't be Switzerland. If you're an LG or you're a Google, you operate in the world that you have created and therefore must build from. We're Switzerland. We think that consumers care about shows, they care about content, they don't care about channels, they don't care about network, and they barely care about devices. 98% of the time when a person turns on their TV, the first thing they do is push guide on their remote control. Okay? 98% of the time. Why? They don't know what channels their favorite shows are on. Okay? Just remember, if it's 98% of the time, even if you knew you were going to watch Idol tonight, you weren't necessarily sure where Fox is. Right? That is America. Right? I'm not speaking for the rest of the world. I'm speaking for American behavior patterns. So we think that clearly points to opportunity to make a great guide. And I think lastly is that we believe the iPad is the right place for it. It's the most visually stimulating product that you can buy, in my opinion, in technology. It's an immersive experience. People love using it, et cetera, et cetera. I don't need to do the Apple adjectives for why the iPad is a great device. But I don't yet think that there is a great experience on the iPad, and so we aim to create that.
All right, I want to come back to this because I think the cable guys are going to be difficult to dislodge, but we'll talk about it in a second. And Brian, the core question for you, right, is that you're selling a box that you're going to attach to my TV. The industry is very much hoping that we're all going to buy new connected TVs, which in theory obviate your box, right? So aren't you fighting against the tide here? If supposedly connected TVs are going to ramp up at whatever rate they're going to ramp up at, the first Google TV product that's coming out in 2.0, I think is like a $2,000 LG. I don't know if it's officially been announced or not. I won't make Adrian confirm it. What's the point of selling $100 boxes if we're all going to have these wonderful TVs?
It's a great question. So, and to be honest, when we came out with the first digital media player, we thought it had a 3, maybe 5-year life cycle. And we thought by then everything would get so stuck in the TV. What we found actually is that it's got a lot more legs than we thought, and for a couple of reasons. Number one is that we found that people were buying maybe a connected TV or using an Xbox or PlayStation kind of in the family room and getting Netflix and Hulu and things like that. And it happened in my house. My wife said, well, I want to finish the Netflix movie upstairs in the bedroom. I wasn't going to go out and buy another connected TV, and I'm not going to put another Xbox in our bedroom. So a $99 box is the perfect way to now basically have all the services that I'm starting to like in the family room, have those in all the other rooms of the house. So it's perfect for the second TV, third TV, fourth TV. The second one then is that how long can a connected TV do all the things that I want it to do in the future? So how many of you have a VCR built into your TV? DVD player built into your TV? Storage drive built into your TV? I mean, you just don't. I mean, TVs weren't made to kind of move as fast as technology. So if you think about it, in conversations with Netflix, they're frustrated because the people who did Netflix version 1, they can't figure out how to get those TVs to the current version of Netflix because they just weren't designed for it. And the concept of people saying, well, TV cycles will change much more quickly. my 50-inch is kind of built in. My wife made me build it into the wall so that there's no extra space on both sides. I'm not changing that for as long as I can. But I can add a little $99 box every 3 years, and now I've got the latest and greatest user interface, the latest and greatest discovery engines, the latest and greatest everything at a really reasonable price point where at $99 I can swap it out every 3 years. I don't have to touch the TV.
And we agree, actually, at Google, and our partners are following both paths. So, as was mentioned, LG is coming out with a Google TV that is the operating system's baked into the television itself. But we think peripheral devices like Blu-rays and streaming boxes with Google TV are going to be increasingly important, because even though maybe the replacement cycle for TVs is moving from 8 to 10 to 5 to 7 years, it's not going to be every 1 to 2 years like phones ever. And so to really be able to get the latest and greatest in power and performance and capabilities, we think that the peripheral devices have some legs for some time to come.
There's something fetishistic, at least in the press and sort of the blogosphere, about the idea of the TV, right? Especially when it comes to Apple TV, everyone's excited about this idea of this 50-inch unicorn, right? It'll be shiny, et cetera. And my gut is that the Apple TV is, for a while, still going to be that box. And you're, for the same reasons you talked about, going to have to attach it, and you guys are hedging your bets there. Adrian, I want to go back and ask you about BizDev, which is what you do. I asked you a bunch of times about whether it was a product issue or a BizDev issue, and you talked to me about product. But the networks did not like Google TV. I don't think they've publicly changed their minds yet. So when you go to market this summer and fall, do you expect to have the broadcast networks cooperating with you, for starters?
So, we're continuing to talk to all of the networks, and, conversations progress. We're supportive of all of the TV Everywhere initiatives and authentication initiatives that are taking place. So I think as that progresses, that you'll see some changes. We already have experiences like HBO and Epix that are authenticated on the device. But I think talking about network blocking a little bit misses the issue. One, because Google TV in particular already allows you to get all that live TV through the platform. So you can already get The Office and 30 Rock on your TV through Google TV without having to
with
switch.
rabbit ears?
No. Google TV is a pass-through device. So you do not even have to switch inputs. So we allow you to watch live TV, and then with one press of a button, get access to the Chrome browser or YouTube and go seamlessly.
And the networks cannot block access.
No, well, Google TV just acts as an overlay in that instance. And so I think that misses,
So when they're blocking participation in the EPG, et cetera?
So not the EPG so much, but really some of the access through the Chrome browser. But at the same time, we still have over 100,000 movies and TV episodes available through other third-party services. So one, you're already getting live TV, and now you're getting 100,000 TV and movie episodes available.
It's like a whack-a-mole.
I know.
In our perspective,
we're just sweating. Can you leave the door open, please? I'd rather. I'm sure we can just sign. People, we can write down what happened. We'll just end it in 5 minutes. Thank you.
I was just going to say our perspective is the same too. So in the content partnerships, you want to talk to the ABCs and the CBS and NBCs. They're not ready to go there. If you think about it, you can understand why. They've got too much to lose and too little to gain in the short term. So instead of trying to fight it, it's just partner with them and let the live TV be live TV, and then just take all the complementary services and add that on top. So as a consumer, you still get a complete experience because you get your live television through this way, and then you get all the over-the-top services on the other side.
And Jeremy, same issue with you in terms of if people are going to allow you access to their program. I mean, you can actually literally go buy the metadata from Tribune for a lot of this stuff, right? But if the cable guys don't want you to directly connect with their TV, they can prevent that from happening. So what you just showed me today, you can see on your computer now is a guide that will allow me to watch Netflix, iTunes stuff directly on the machine. When it comes to something that's on linear TV, it says, well, go press channel 73 on your remote, right? You need to bridge that gap.
Yep.
You think the cable guys will let you in?
Yep. So our vision, again, if you use our app to find a show, 30 Rock, The Office, and that's on channel, 784, that there's a button you can push that turns your connected something to that channel. So if that's a connected set-top box, that would be most common in households today, that we'd be able to change that using open APIs. To date, we have APIs in our office already that let us control literally tens of millions of homes. So the world's already moved to this semi-open place. It's taken a little while to get here. It seems, again, I kind of have an Occam's razor. It just seems like it's getting more open. And I look at this, there was a watershed moment last year. I'm sure you probably even wrote about it. When Comcast announced some results of their Xfinity app, they showed a 12% increase in purchased video-on-demand VOD content for people who use their Xfinity app on iPads. And it's interesting because I think it kind of, when you talk it sounds pretty natural, like, oh, we let people find content easier and they bought more of it. You know, which I think is probably a lot of Google's premise for existing, is we're going to make it really easy to find content, therefore they will consume. So we fit into that same bucket. I have a belief that in our first few months out there, it will take a little while to get there. So for example, one major MSO has already made the statement that if you want to use our API, then results shown cannot have, for example, Netflix and Hulu on par with linear broadcasting. Well, that's the kind of thing we could just make work in our app. You know, we don't believe that that is the only reason people.
You think it's a fair demand from the content test?
I think it is a.
Because Google ran into the same problem, I believe. Last year.
It is a fair demand. I think it's a miscited one. I think the reality is that it's about consumer preference. I think we're kind of on this path toward the you know, if you look at iTunes, for example. If I refer you to buy an episode of Mad Men on iTunes, I can actually monetize that myself, right? It's like 8 cents or something. But you put that in mass and it works. Well, if Comcast can enable everybody from Google TV to us to anybody who builds an app or a website to monetize selling movies in their 6,000 title strong video on demand library, that's actually not a stretch from their business. Trying to get them to do stuff that they don't normally, that's actually their business, right? They sell content, and there's such a thing as a finder's fee. So we're not trying to get them to do something they don't like doing. We're just trying to get them into a world where maybe the results can coexist with each other. I think it'll take them a while to get there. I'm not saying they'll get there today, but they're showing every sign of heading down that way. We already actually have confirmation from one pretty major service provider that said that in the next 30 days they will likely change their policy on where they see Netflix. Because one, you're not ditching cable. You've written that many people aren't cord cutting. Cord cutting's cute, but it's not really happening at this point. It's just not. I don't think it's going to the way people like. It sounds great for a blog post, but I don't think it's really going to happen. Look at the other content out there. It's not good enough. So you look at Netflix users; they have a 90+% attach rate to some other service. Same thing goes for Hulu. Same thing goes for Vudu. Same thing goes for all of these services. So I don't think Comcast. I think they're slowly realizing that they're not going to lose any money by having Netflix coexist in their world.
I don't want to fight with anyone in the back of the room over the door anymore, so I'm going to see if you guys have questions you want to lob first. I've got other questions if you want to go in, but I'm happy to start Q&A right now. Do folks in the audience have questions for these panelists? Please.
Yeah, the Google TV you mentioned before, how would that be different from the TV in the demo area, the Samsung connected TV with the web browser in it? What would be different about a Google TV than that product, say?
So a couple of things. One, the Samsung connected smart TVs that are out there today are Samsung's own proprietary platform. Google TV is a different platform based off of Android. So just like 5 years ago in the mobile phone space, you had dozens of different operating systems, and today there are maybe 3 or 4, depending on who you want to count on any given day. We think that the number of operating systems in the connected TV world will also converge over time, and we think that Android has a good shot at being one of the operating systems that help power that.
Why do you guys think that?
Why do we think Android has a good shot?
Why do you think TV OSs are going to converge? Because I don't. I'm just curious. I never had the chance to ask someone from Google TV that question.
Sure.
This is my dream panel when the panel just starts working by itself.
I think if past is prologue, we've seen that in the PC world, right, where you had Windows and Mac primarily, and then in the mobile space, we've seen that as well. And so we think it's a fairly good prediction to say that it'll converge in the other space. Plus, if you ask a lot of these content providers and you go and you talk to Amazon or Netflix, they're supporting dozens and dozens of different platforms, which is just unsustainable for them. I mean, even the largest players like Netflix and Amazon in the over-the-top space are struggling with that. And so they want to see a convergence to make it much more streamlined for everyone.
But the
I think that
the TV makers don't want it.
Well, the TV makers, I mean, our platform still allows them to differentiate in a number of different ways based on UI, based on input devices, and ultimately, if there's a consolidation in the ecosystem, then more developers are going to start developing for.
So I think in the end, the content, fortunately or unfortunately, content is kind of the king, right? People want to watch their Disney shows or their Mad Men or whatever it would be. So in the end, all those people, right, they were nice enough for a while to kind of support 20, 30 different platforms, a lot of them proprietary platforms. I think in the end, they'll drive it down so that it consolidates. Now, the question is, does it consolidate at the let me finish. Does it consolidate at the OS or does it consolidate at a different level? For example, if HTML5 browsers were standard, we could all the different players can put in an HTML5 browser and they can design once for an HTML5 application, and they wouldn't care about the OS. Sure. So it could. I'd like it to go that way, right, where you get it at that middleware layer and make it go that way, and then the OSs can all be different if they want to be.
Okay. I have a hard time seeing. I talk to all the guys who make TVs. They have hundreds and hundreds of people working on these platforms. The problem is it's a bit of what's the phrase, Mexican standoff? Everybody's pointing the gun at each other. The LG can't simply say to Netflix, you're not going to be on it. Well, they would never say to Netflix, you're not going to be on a next-gen TV. But Netflix similarly can't say to LG, you have to change your OS for us to be on your platform, because they all sell enough units to make it work. So, In
a Mexican standoff, that's a bad thing, right? Nothing happens. But here, right. But here, it's not. This isn't bad, though, right? I mean, at least for the consumers still get choice. The content still gets out there. This is a reason that being the TV business is bad, because it makes your bad margins even worse. For consumers, they don't care or shouldn't care.
Again, I just go back to my root questions. I don't see, having done TV as long as I have, I don't see fragmentation going away anytime soon for any of the reasons we've talked about. Other than, by the way, I agree that it should happen, but I don't believe it will happen.
Other questions from the audience?
So for Brian and Adrian, I'd be curious if you could articulate where you think mainstream America is in their adoption of streaming as a medium of choice. So if I look at game consoles as being a medium for early adopters, and set-top boxes and connected TVs being one for more average people, where do you think we are in that curve? And maybe that's not a fair observation, or so.
Well, I would say game consoles is beyond early adopters with, I don't know the exact numbers, 30, 40, 50 million out there. It's much beyond that. But I do think that we are primarily in the early adopter stage with connected TVs and the understanding. I mean, think of how many people started buying HD TVs and didn't even hook it up correctly to their set-top boxes.
Still haven't.
Still haven't. So I think that's where we are, if not earlier, in the connected TV space.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree as well too. I mean, I think game consoles have hit the mainstream. PCs and laptops, have hit the mainstream where people are watching Netflix in Kansas, and all those different devices. Digital media players and Google TVs are still much earlier adopter. But I think it's all going to move very quickly. And in the end, consumers don't care, right? They want to watch the first season of Mad Men. They ideally want to go to their screen and somebody, with good recommendation stuff, they want to say, point me to the first season of Mad Men, and it just plays. I don't care whether it's streamed. I don't care whether it's broadcast. I don't care whether it's over video on demand, whatever it might be. They just want their content. And our job is to make it easy.
Yeah. And I mean, that's our approach. I mean, given Google, it sounds like you're doing this on the iPad, but that's what we're doing with search and discovery. I mean, we allow you to search across content providers. So you do a search on Mad Men, and you can find out if that's available via Amazon, via Netflix. If it's playing live on your television coming soon, we allow you to navigate there. And we also help you find the content that you want easier. You don't have to know what channel you want. If you're a news junkie and you want to watch Morning Joe, you can just type in MSNBC or Morning Joe and never have to remember that channel number again. And so, I think that value will become more and more apparent to the consumers over time, but it hasn't been widely adopted yet.
Given that the networks and the pay TV services place the highest value on the stuff they run first on their platform, they get the highest monetization for ad dollars. If you're HBO, that's why you're paying $12 or $18. Do you think they're always going to want to keep that off of your platform or keep that in their silo and make you all of you sort of get second run stuff, library stuff, or do you think at some point something breaks and then all streams become of equal value? And what does that do for you guys?
And I think the people who are paying the most are going to want first, the best quality, right? And the best quality could mean a lot of things, right? They're going to either want first run or the best high definition or whatever it be. And in the end, the content guys, from my experience with them, they'll sell whatever to the highest bidder. And a lot of times it's not long-term strategic, it's short-term, who's putting the most money on the table, and what do I have to negotiate to give them to kind of get that. So I think they're going to want to keep it closed, and I think if you put enough money on the table, you can get preferential treatment for a while.
Someone going to pony up big dollars for a big must-have piece of programming like football, for instance, and put it on a Google TV or a competitor platform, Adrian?
I mean, that's not our model. I mean, we are just a platform. We're not licensing any content directly.
Your cousins over at YouTube are.
I cannot speak to what they may or may not do. But from a Google TV perspective, we're open to any model, and we're agnostic as to any model.
When you pass them in the hallway, what do they say about paying?
We don't tell.
Okay. Jeremy, you got thoughts on super premium content and whether or not that's important to get that on these boxes?
I don't think. I was on a panel this morning with a guy from MLB, and what's interesting is we spent a little bit more time talking about baseball than I think we all meant to, but they're in an interesting position. So he revealed that MLB.com, which is now, by the way, MLB.com is a completely different company than Major League Baseball. Okay, they shed their IP rights to a new organization. And that company now makes $600 million a year. Just on IP distribution of baseball content. iPad apps, connected TV apps, wherever they can sell it, that's their mission. What's interesting is right now you're starting to see the channels start, like ESPN, ABC, et cetera, start wanting to have more IP rights to baseball games because they currently have effectively none. And all those deals are starting to come up for grabs again. So we're going to see this really interesting battle happen where either they're going to have to decide to share, which they have never, ever done, or come up with some new bidding war. If you've been watching some of the networks getting turned on and off, satellite, et cetera, over the past couple of months, I wouldn't be surprised to see, that to me, by the way, is where we'll see groundbreaking change happen, is that somebody someday, and not too far down the road, is going to buy out some piece of expensive content and make it exist somewhere that we're not used to seeing. I'm not going to go with Super Bowl because that's just too crazy. Everybody talks about Super Bowl streaming. It's such an isolation. But I think we will see some of these rights all of a sudden appear, whether it's NBA or NHL or even golf or tennis. It wouldn't surprise me to all of a sudden see an IP-only solution for one of these things show up out of nowhere because someone's willing to write a big enough check.
I think Tennis Channel will show up on YouTube pretty quick because they don't have full distribution to begin with. I mean, the real mover, I think, will be something that everyone does want to get right now, something like football that people would actually pay money for. Other questions from the audience in the back there?
Brian from Tremor Video. I think personalization and engagement is going to drive the convergence to OS. I wonder what you guys think, and coupled to that, any predictions about personalized programming, which was not possible in the broadcast age, and personalized advertising. So, hello, Adrienne. I'm Celebrity Star X talking to you. There's technology today to personalize ads, for example, in that way.
Adrian, let's start with you because you're in the ad business.
I do think that personalization and localization will come to the connected TV space, but I think that we're probably a little bit of a ways off.
How far off?
2 years. I just think we need to reach much greater mass than we have right now. 3 million is an impressive number, but it's not going to, brand advertisers aren't going gaga over that right now, especially when you try to personalize, regionalize amongst 3 million, or even if you call it 12 million across all of these connected devices. But personalization is huge for all of these devices and all of these connected platforms. As I talked about, our TV and movies guy Jeremy's TV movies guide, it's personalized to the individual based on exactly what you want to watch. And you can have multiple profiles in a home as well. And we think that that's huge. And if you look even at our YouTube experience on Google TV today, you can create custom channels on the fly. I've got a 18-month-old at home who's obsessed with ducks quacking and pigs oinking, and I can do a search for that and have an automatic playlist just play, which is pretty impressive and incredibly personal, right? How many other people in the world are watching a playlist of pigs oinking at the same time that I am?
Just
Maybe a few.
So I would agree as well too. So I think of it almost 3 phases. The first 2 happen together, which is personalized recommendations, where it's really not that hard to be able to look at what did you watch before, what are you watching now, what's trending hot on the internet, and what did your friends watch. We're very close to pulling all those pieces together to be able to kind of deliver that on a user-by-user basis. Profiles on a TV, so I know whether it's mom, dad, or kid 1 or kid 2 are watching, isn't so bad. Second one is personalized advertising. Sitting with my 9-year-old watching a football game the other day, first the beer commercial came on, not appropriate for the kid to be watching, and then the Viagra commercial came on. Unfortunately, I don't need that one yet. Neither does he. So those 2 things, right? And I said to him, I'm like, this is silly, right? There's no way 5 years from now we're going to be sitting watching a commercial that's not relevant to us. And I think, if you look at what Hulu, all the over-the-top services now are able to gather the profile, gather all that information, so now that they can start doing more specific ads within an over-the-top video stream, because it is kind of one-to-one, not broadcast anymore.
They're still quite clumsy and not very specific at all.
They're not.
They're just saying, well, we're sorry we showed you this, so you didn't want to see it. That's the level of personalization.
And the same one like 10 times in a row, too. So they'll get better.
I don't think 5 years from now you'll see that change. I'm sorry. I think that time frame is way too short. I think the biggest shift... I think in 5 years you won't see a shift in personalization on advertising on TVs in the slightest. I think it's way too short a time frame. I think the shift you'll see in 5 years, if I make a money bet, would be you'll see a shift towards less call to actions in TV-based advertising. Much more brand-based advertising because they're realizing the ineffectiveness of putting phone numbers, URLs, and quick QR codes, for God's sake, in your TV commercial. I think that's where the second screen, forget my app for a second, I think second screen platforms will start taking on a much, much bigger portion of advertising in years to come. So on your TV, you get a Ford commercial, and on whatever app you happen to be using, whether it's Words with Friends or a remote control app or an app like ours, it doesn't even matter. That app will have, instead of telling you about Ford in general, it'll tell you about the local dealer. Or click here for whatever discount off beer or whatever it is that you're going to get the ad for. I think that's the biggest shift you'll see in the shortest time frame because the money's too big to see massive shift happen. Fundamentally, the people who buy Viagra ads don't know how to not sell every football game. They have way too much money to spend, and they will not stop spending it. And by the way, one last note on the personalization. When our app launches this year, it'll be entirely about personalized. Every single user will have a completely different experience than every other user. It'll learn about you at a level of what you tend to watch on a Tuesday evening versus a Wednesday evening versus what you watch
Jeremy can demo it for you afterwards. He can show you that he's from Montreal, and there's Montreal TV in there. We have room for maybe 2 quick questions. One there.
Adrian, what's your response to that? If I saw a URL with Google TV at some point, will I be able to click on Ford.com, whatever the car is in the commercial?
I definitely think that there's space, and you could be right that the second screen is a very valid way to start personalizing advertising. It's much more easy to engage and have action-oriented results on an iPad or mobile phone. And I think that connecting to what you're watching, you've already started to see some kind of content ID type calls to action from some, but it's very early. But I think that's a very valid way that this could go.
Other questions back there?
So what do you think about, going back to what you said earlier, as content is king, as the web video starts to get better? Just this morning, Turner announced that they purchased Funny or Die.
No, they're selling some ads for them.
But I assume that it was at the upfront, the broadcast upfront, so they're going to put it on TV.
They're going to sell ads for web video, I believe.
Do you see any possibility of broadcasting continuing to try to acquire the good web videos to continue to promote traditional broadcast model?
I mean, I think both, right? I mean,
Yes.
in the end, they're in the content business. So if they see good content that they think they can bring into the fold, that they can get for a good price, they'll buy it and they'll try and monetize it in all the different ways that they can.
Yeah, I think you just take the word web out of web video and you kind of get to the conclusion pretty quick. It's not about that it's on the web.
There's
right?
still huge gaps in web video, stuff that people are making for the
Agreed.
web
No,
and TV. And it should be much closer than it is now.
Well, I
money.
I keep reading these like, when are we going to get user source content? This is a task I give people at people who have to listen to me talk for blah blah blah. When you watch a show tonight, go pick some terrible reality show that you would never watch. Don't worry, you don't have to watch the show. Just watch the closing credits. Okay, look how many people it takes to make a god-awful show that has no real writing of any kind. And you'll see exactly what I mean very quickly, and now you'll understand why 3 guys and the camera and YouTube don't equal television.
Right, and what YouTube would like to do, I would think, is get to the point where 20 guys can make a reasonable version of Chopped, or even I like Chopped, or even a bad reality show, right? And that should be doable sooner than later, but we're still pretty far away from it. One last question: anybody done? Thank you guys. Thanks for sticking around in a very hot room. Thank the panelists for your patience.